Okay, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, we're now going on to the second part of the meeting. And as before, a drill is not expected. So if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once outside of the building, please gather outside the Yorkshire Bank on the opposite side of the road. Please exit by the door which you entered the room or by the fire exits which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Please also make sure your mobile phones are turned off or set to silent. Apologies received.
Yes, Councillor Doherty, Chair.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest other than those that are on the agenda? No? Okay, brilliant. Public participation at extraordinary meetings. I've had no notice of any questions. Right, so now we're moving on to exclusion of the public and press. Can I remind members, before we discuss whether to exclude the press and public from consideration of this item, that the report contains information that, if made public, could harm the interests of a third party, as well as disclose information which is confidential about a third party. Disclosure of such information could be damaging to both the party and the council. It is for that reason, as well as legal considerations, that the report before us has been submitted as an exempt item. It has been recommended that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item. It being likely that there would be disclosure of exempt information of the discretion specified in paragraph 1, 3 and 4 of part 5 of part 1 of scheduled 12A to the Act. So I move the recommendation from the Chair. Is there a seconder?
Second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tandy. Does any member wish to speak on this? Right, several then. So, in no particular order, but as I've seen them, Councillor Evans.
Obviously, this report is on pink paper, so I am, very limited to what I can say. But I've read this report, and I have to say, I think it would be in the public interest for people in the public gallery, and obviously if people watch on the YouTube page afterwards, to actually hear the debate. So I would encourage members to vote against this recommendation, which has been proposed by yourself, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Croft.
I'll be voting against this, Mr. Mayor, because I believe there is no justification for item 6 being heard in closed session. I'm going to be careful about what I say, but that third party you referred to could very easily have been redacted. Everyone else mentioned in this document is dead. That third party is, I believe, party to a commercial agreement and would therefore be on the public record anyway. There's no sensitive information that wouldn't be published in the budget papers. There doesn't seem to be any detailed plans that would affect a commercial tender. In fact, there doesn't seem to be any detailed plans at all. And it seems to me that the real reason is that the absolute litany of failures contained in this document are so awful and so embarrassing to the council leadership that if the public saw them, there would be outrage, or more outrage, on this issue. So they have to keep it behind doors to save face. That's no way to run things. I think that sunlight is the best disinfectant, as someone once said. Openness is the best cure for mismanagement, and the people of this borough deserve to know what the council has been doing with their money and their assets. They deserve to know what the leadership of this council is going to do, or going to refuse to do, to protect them from the menace of traveller incursions. And they'll only get that if we talk in the open tonight, so I'll be voting, Mr Mayor, to give the people what they deserve.
Councillor Tromans.
On Pink Paper did look into the details and did some extensive research into Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. There are indeed some pieces of information in there which would fall under the categories described. So just for everybody's benefit, 12A says that everything should be disclosed, apart from if there's a really good reason for it, like you're disclosing very sensitive information about a sick child, or there's very confidential commercial information, and it falls under one of these prescribed categories that's listed that you read out earlier, then you can withhold that information. It doesn't have to be disclosed to the public. But there is no predetermined right, there is no automatic exclusion. Just because a piece of information falls under one of those categories doesn't mean it should be excluded. And indeed, the guidance that comes from the government says the test needs to be, when you exclude, the test needs to say the interest of the public is best served by excluding than leaving it in the public interest. Well, I would say, as Councillor Croft has, there is nothing in here that is not information that isn't in the public domain or couldn't be freed of information out of the council, because they relate to commercial arrangements, one very minor commercial arrangement, and it names one individual. And that one individual is party to a commercial arrangement, and so again, that would be freedom of informationable. So all the other people, as has been mentioned, who are cited in here by name are dead. There is no reason whatsoever for this to be kept secret, other than it is a very long story of well, really the council's mismanagement, and so that would be the only reason to keep it on Pink Paper, would be to try and keep things quiet. I'm glad you think it's so funny, Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Councillor Brindley-Edwards.
Because I think many of my colleagues have already made many of the points that I was going to anyway. It's been quite emotive in here this evening. I don't really envy the job that you've had to do, actually. And we've had quite a full public gallery. Well, not quite so full now. It's interesting to see those that have stayed to the bitter end, actually, and those that bailed early doors. But I think all of that really is testament to the magnitude and the importance of these issues that we've been discussing tonight. And let us be frank, these people that are sat up in the public gallery, they've voted for us to be sat here, and as such they deserve to hear what we've got to say on these issues, not to be shut out. Having read this, like many of my colleagues have mentioned, there's no reason for this to be discussed in secret. Everyone mentioned in here is either no longer with us or is a matter of public record. I can't see any reason why it would be commercially sensitive for the very negligible revenue. I mean, a couple of £100 a year hardly screams commercial sensitivity. And in short, I won't be voting to exclude the public and press for this, and I hope that no other member does either, just that the people that have stayed for quite a long time this evening have a chance to hear what we've all got to say in here on this very important issue.
Follow on from everything that's been said, really. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason really why this sensitive so-called information for the person that is actually still living can't be redacted. And yes, it's subject to a commercial agreement, so yes, it can be FOI'd. I mean, this is just basically a family history of somebody. I know more about this family than I do about my own, and I've given birth to two of them. So it's kind of meaningless, really. You could have saved the paper, and also the element where we actually discuss things that we would like to do is woefully inadequate. So again, there's not really a lot in here that the public shouldn't be party to. It's their money, after all. It's not your money. You tax everybody. They pay it. It's their money. They should know what's going on. There is literally, you know, you could get a blackout pen black out a couple of bits, and you're done. I mean, it's perfectly fine. This is just so people can't hear what's being said, and well, I take it that you're going to turn it down, the spend that we would like to put towards target hardening. Given what's been said in previous session, you don't really think it's worth it anyway. So, but the residents are going to know whether you accept it or not, because we'll either have £100,000 going towards Gypsy and Traveller target hardening, or we won't. And if we don't, it's not on our watch, it's on yours. It'll be your hands that don't go up, not ours. We want this. So again, you can't really hide from the public. This is just a bit of a nonsense, really.
Attentive to legal opinions, and the key word is opinion on this one, and I accept it's legal advice that we have to take according to law. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to follow that advice, but we have to have a very good reason why we don't follow that advice. In this case, I believe there is an extremely strong public interest element in this matter, where there would be a public interest case for residents and also indeed the press to report what is going on here. We are talking about the expenditure of £150,000. That is something like 5 to 6 times a person's average salary within this borough. It's not insignificant change to most residents, and I think they would have a very keen interest in seeing how £150,000 is being spent. Now, normally when we consider pink paper items, it's because there is a commercial sensitivity. It could mean that an agreement will fall through, or there could be a potential impact on the revenue if an agreement doesn't go through. We are not subject to any ongoing negotiations or agreements with this. We have attempted, but there is nothing definite going on, according to the paperwork. And I'm being very careful and looking at the nods from legal here, but there is nothing concrete. In fact, we'd be in a better position if there was something more concrete going on. But if residents think that we've been playing a game of cat and mouse with gypsies over the past couple of years, in my view, if residents could see the contents of this report, they would see that we are damn near experts at playing cat and mouse, because of what is in there. It shows up the failings, in my view, of this council in dealing with this difficult subject, and they have a right to know where the failings have gone on, why £150,000 has been allocated for 8 years but not been spent. They have a right to know if they go through with the proposed recommendations, whether or not that money will be reallocated to better purposes, whether one or a few people's interests will trump the overwhelming interests of over 125,000 people who would see more benefit from the expenditure of £150,000 than is contained within this report. I think it is extremely dangerous of this council to spend money behind closed doors. Councillor Tandy may laugh about that, but that might be why she's lost a council seat in the past and why she might do so in the future, because I take my responsibilities very seriously, and I actually think that residents deserve to know the answers behind what is going on. Hiding it on pink papers actually makes us look as if we are doing something on the fiddle. It doesn't matter whether we are or not. It's the perception that matters. Perception equals reality for most people out there, and that is the cold, hard fact. And if they don't see what we're doing tonight, because if we do reject what we put forward at the last full council, I think the leader of the council will have some very difficult questions to answer when she says to residents in her own ward, some of whom are actually here tonight, why we aren't target hardening areas like the Gala Fields and the Pingles, when a sum of money could be identified to do just that. I think that's a very, very difficult way to go. We shouldn't be having this on pink, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Walmsley.
Just to put my thoughts on record, I said earlier that I don't believe this should be on pink, and I still don't. The item need not be debated in private. We know that under the General Data Protection Regulations, that actually a person ceases to be a data subject once they pass away, once they're deceased. So that leaves one person living named in this report, and as has already been explored by colleagues with immense experience in this, that it would be subject to a commercial tenancy, commercial agreement, and therefore information that could be FOI'd, etc., in the public domain. Councillor Tromans was very clear. Section 12A allows us to the decision not to exclude when it's in the overwhelming public interest. And I'd echo the words of Councillor Wilson. I think for people, £150,000 expenditure is a massive sum of money to be expending on a single project, especially when we're looking like a 500-year payback period for that.
Councillor Conco.
I understand why this is on pink, and I understand how you can make things go on pink by containing information that need to be kept confidential. So whether this should be on pink might be a difficult decision, but whether it should have contained that information which forces it to be on pink is a different question, because the council can always wriggle out of divulging things by putting personal information mixed in with non-personal information, and this has been a long-standing farce, this particular incident. So that's one issue. The second issue is, this is actually two issues. One, is this money available, and two, how we're going to spend it. So section 7 of this report, I hope I can use a number, it's not too confident. We could discuss section 7 in public and then discuss sections 1 to 6 in private if that was needed. And we keep coming back to all these fiascos, and we should learn. And what we tend to do is we tend to gag and hide. It was the same with the riding school, where there's a non-disclosure agreements done. When we do these things, we never learn from our mistakes because things are kept secret. So I hope after this is discussed in private, the press will do a freedom of information request for the pink papers. Quite rightly, the private data will be then redacted, and the press will be able to read the substantial story of this fiasco.
So Conco. Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I seem to have heard during the course, but before I say that, Chair, Councillor Wilson mentioned my laughing. Yet again, he was trying to talk to us about where and not to spend our money when they completely made a mess of their budget in February this year. And of course, yet again, even more personal attacks. We're getting used to it anyway. I thought that every person mentioned in here is dead. But then I heard Councillor Walmsley agreed that someone was living. Can I ask you, Conservatives, if the person that mentioned in this report was a member of your family, would you like their personal details spread all across the newspapers and in a public meeting? I suspect the answer is no. And let's remember, we seem to have a lot of legal minds on the Conservative side tonight. Have you ever stopped to think about the Data Protection Act? Think about it.
Thank you, Councillor Tandy. Councillor Hancox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, those people that know me know that I'm not keen on things being held in private. But I have to say, Mr. Mayor, on this occasion, I am really concerned about the types of things that are being said. Unless I'm going to receive some other legal advice, I have to say, Mr. Mayor, as a layperson, okay, I'm elected here, I would be foolish not to take the legal advice that has been presented to me. So unless there's something going to be added to that or removed from it, I will be taking the legal advice for this to be heard in private session. It was said it's extremely dangerous. What's extremely dangerous is how the points are being stretched to this, to almost debating the matter when we're only on about whether to exclude the press and the public. There's been figures stated. A couple of £300, £150,000. Sorry, I'm falling into the trap myself, aren't I? I will just repeat myself, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry. You all think I'm stupid and thick and whatever. I think you've said it before. Mr. Mayor, I'm not a solicitor. I'm not a barrister. I like to think I'm not even, what do they call them? A barroom barrister or whatever. Mr. Mayor, we would be foolish to ignore the advice we have been given.
Not write reports. Officers write them, and officers have made a clear recommendation that this is heard in private session. Mr. Mayor, we have a highly qualified head of legal who has given that opinion. I don't think anyone in this room, to my knowledge, has similar legal qualifications. I would stand corrected if I'm wrong, but we have to take due account of that advice. To do otherwise would place us in jeopardy of falling foul of protecting both the rights of individuals and indeed this council. So, Mr. Mayor, I hope we will be able to move to the move to the vote, because I do think the input from members is becoming a little repetitive.
I am actually now going to move to the vote.
Mr. Mayor, I call a recorded vote.
Of course, yep. Simone?
Councillor Beaumont.
In favour.
4. Councillor Brinley Edwards. Councillor Brown absent. Councillor Croft. Councillor Daffin. Councillor Doherty absent. Apologies. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Gazane absent. Councillor Glass. Councillor Golby. Councillor Gran. Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Hancox.
4, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condacor. Councillor Llewellyn-Nash absent. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Longdon. Councillor Pandare. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Pomfret. Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent. Councillor J. Sargent. Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tromans. Councillor Walmsley. Councillor Watkins.
4.
Councillor Wilson. That's carried.
Okay then, that's carried. Right. So, if I could ask the members of the public and press to please leave.